Twin suns burned over Erebus 6, turning the landing pad into a sheet of white fire. Heat shimmered off the metal rails and crawled up through boots and bone. Captain Ryland Cole stepped out of his freighter and squinted across the barren spaceport. He had crossed 3 systems with crates of rare medicine that could save lives. Now he wanted his payment, 15,000 credits and a cool drink. Instead, he got silence, dust, and the faint hum of broken machines. The settlement barely deserved the name. A handful of dome houses, a small tower with a blinking red light, and a canteen that looked ready to collapse. He wiped sweat from his neck and muttered, "Hell of a place to call home." Then he saw movement, a thick blue-skinned figure stumbling out of the canteen's shadow. The alien wore torn fabric and smelled of sour fruit. Breck, the trader. His contact. Ryland kept his voice steady. Shipment delivered. Now, 15,000 credits. Breck's mouth curled into an uneasy smile. Market bad. Credits gone. I offer other value. Ryland frowned. Credits. Today. Breck turned and waved toward a dark corner beneath a hangar's overhang. Leora, come here. From the shadows stepped a girl, not quite human, but close. Her skin was the same deep blue as Breck's, but smoother. Silver hair framed her thin face, and her eyes were clear, calm, and full of something Ryland hadn't expected, intelligence. She clutched a small cloth bag to her chest. My daughter, Breck said proudly. Good worker. Clean, cook, quiet. 1 standard year, debt clear. Ryland stared, disgusted. You're offering your daughter as payment? Not forever, Breck slurred, waving a lazy hand. She deaf. Born that way. Useless here. Better with human. Human's kind. Leora didn't move. Her gaze stayed low, but her hands trembled slightly. When she lifted her head, Ryland saw it. Not weakness, but willpower hiding under fear. He looked at Breck again. Does she have a choice? Breck chuckled. She obeys. Is our way. Wind hissed over the pad, lifting sand against Ryland's coat. Somewhere behind them, a loose sign banged against a post. He looked again at the girl, at the quiet strength in her stance, the small spark in her eyes. Something inside him hardened. 1 year, he said finally. She serves. Then the debt is gone. No harm, no claim, no tricks. Breck's grin widened. Good deal, Captain. He pushed the girl forward and waddled away without another word. Ryland sighed. He touched Leora's shoulder to get her attention. Come, he said slowly, making sure she could read his lips. She nodded once and followed, steps small but steady. Inside the freighter, the air turned cool. The ramp closed with a hiss, sealing them from the heat outside. Stars waited beyond the sky. Ryland led her through narrow corridors to a small cabin near the bridge, clean, simple, with a bed and a window showing the void. This is yours, he said. You are safe here. Leora opened her bag and took out a small, scratched datapad. She typed something, then held it out to him. I can read lips. I can write standard. Thank you. Ryland relaxed a little. He typed back. Respect, privacy, honesty. That's all I ask. She read it and nodded. The first day passed in awkward silence. She tried to help in the galley but didn't know the controls. He showed her which buttons to press. She learned fast. When their hands brushed, her skin felt cool, almost like stone under moonlight. By the second night, the ship hummed through deep space. Ryland sat in the cockpit, checking star charts. Then, a faint light blinked on his old encrypted comm pad, a device he hadn't used in years. His blood ran cold. Slowly, he opened it. Blaglass compromised. Sleepers awake. Watch your back. He froze. That was a code from another life, a life he'd buried long ago. He closed the pad and sat still, listening to the soft hum of the engines. In the corridor, the light under Leora's cabin door glowed faintly. She was awake, moving quietly. He watched that shadow for a long time. Ryland looked back at the stars. Just 1 year, he whispered. Then peace. But deep inside, he knew. He hadn't escaped anything. He had only opened another door. 3 days later, the freighter Vigilant cut through the clouds of Arcadia, a world painted in green and violet light. Ryland Cole watched the surface grow larger through the cockpit window. It was home, or at least the closest thing he had left to the word. A quiet planet, far from wars, politics, and old ghosts. He hoped. Beside him sat Leora, her wide eyes following every flicker on the controls. When they broke through the atmosphere, She pressed her hand to the glass, staring at the rivers that glowed faintly under twin moons. For a moment, Ryland saw something pure in her face, wonder. He landed the ship near his small ranch outside the city of Haven's Reach. It wasn't much, just one house, a barn, and a wide porch that faced the hills. The air smelled of iron and flowers. He opened the hatch, and a breeze swept through, carrying the soft sound of insects. Leora stepped onto the soil like it was sacred ground. She turned her face to the wind and closed her eyes. Maybe she couldn't hear it, but she could feel it. Ryland led her through the house. Wooden floors, simple furniture, walls lined with small treasures from distant systems. Crystals, tools, old metals. She paused by each one, touching them lightly, tracing their shapes like reading through her fingers. When they reached the guest room, she looked around and smiled. Then she typed on her datapad, "First room, that is mine." Something in Ryland's chest twisted. He only nodded. "It's yours." That night, he sat on the porch, the twin moons glowing above the trees. The sound of the night creatures was soft, steady. He thought of the message, the one that had broken 3 years of silence. Black glass compromised. He had burned his uniform, changed his name, disappeared. And yet, somehow, it still found him. The door opened behind him. Leora stepped out, wearing a loose white tunic from the ship's stores. Her silver hair caught the moonlight, shining like frost. She hesitated, then walked closer and sat beside him. He pointed to the stars. "Out there," he said slowly, letting her watch his lips. "I saw a lot of ugly things." She typed on her pad, "Here, peace?" "Maybe," he said, "if we're lucky." She smiled faintly, then wrote another line. "You lonely." Ryland blinked. "You read that from my face?" She nodded, eyes calm. Faces speak louder than mouths. He laughed quietly. "Then I'm in trouble." For the first time in years, he didn't feel completely alone. Over the next few days, she settled in. The silence between them turned comfortable. She cleaned, cooked, and learned the house systems faster than most humans could. She even improved the food synthesizer's recipes, adding herbs she gathered from the hills. The place began to feel alive. One morning, Ryland was fixing the water recycler in the yard. His wrench slipped, cutting his hand deep. Blood spilled bright red across his palm. "Damn it," he hissed. Before he could wrap it, Leora ran over. Her eyes widened at the sight of his blood. She knelt, took his hand gently, and pulled a small pouch from her pocket. From it, she sprinkled a fine blue powder into the wound. The pain vanished almost instantly. Ryland stared. The gash closed before his eyes. "How?" She typed, "Healer's dust. My people use it. Helps skin remember itself." He flexed his hand. "No scar. That's incredible." Leora smiled softly and wrote another line. "Your blood, beautiful color." Ryland froze, then laughed. Never heard that one before. Her fingers brushed his jaw, light as breath. "You're curious," he said, trying to sound casual, but his voice came out rough. Her hand lingered one heartbeat longer. Then she stepped back, embarrassed. Before he could speak, a harsh alarm screamed from inside. The perimeter alert. Ryland grabbed his pistol from the bench. "Stay here." Through the monitor, he saw figures approaching, tall, insectoid aliens from the neighboring farm. Not enemies, just nosy. But still, it made his pulse spike. He opened the door. Krell, good evening." The insectoids chittered politely and held out a basket of glowing fungus. "Harvest gift," Trell said. His gaze shifted to Leora, who stood behind Ryland. "You keep Procyon female?" "She's my housekeeper," Ryland replied. Trell's antenna twitched. Strange human habit. Keep servant, not mate. Leora watched, reading their gestures. Then she began moving her hands, fluid, expressive. It was silent language, but powerful. The aliens tilted their heads, fascinated. Ryland translated. "She says she can't hear you, but can read lips. She asks that you face her when you speak." Trell blinked, then nodded slowly. "Smart one," he said. "Maybe not just decoration." After they left, Ryland turned to her. "That was brave," he said. She typed, "They respect strength. Silence, not weakness." He smiled. "You know, I'm starting to think I could learn from you." Leora looked at him, then wrote, "Then learn. Teach me your sign. I teach you mine." That night, under the quiet stars, they sat across from each other, hands tracing symbols in the air. Her movements were graceful, his were clumsy but determined. Each gesture pulled them closer. Neither realized it, but the silence between them had already become something else entirely. Connection. Morning light poured through Arcadia's twin moons, painting soft blue shadows across Ryland's porch. The quiet calm felt fragile, almost unreal. He had spent years drifting through cold space, avoiding attachments. Now a deaf alien woman was brewing tea in his kitchen, and somehow that made more sense than anything else. Leora moved with precise grace, her silver hair falling forward as she arranged herbs on a tray. Steam curled upward, carrying the smell of mint and something sweetly metallic. Ryland watched from the doorway, unsure what surprised him more, that he liked having company, or that the silence between them no longer felt empty. But peace never lasted long for men like him. Later that day, a coded message blinked to life on his encrypted communicator, the same black device he had buried in a drawer. The text appeared sharp, cold. Blaglass update. Asset movements detected near your sector. Possible exposure. Evacuate or secure. Ryland's pulse quickened. He read it twice, then turned it off and shoved it deep in his coat pocket. He'd told himself that life was over. No more missions, no more enemies. But old shadows had long memories. That night, he found Leora in the garden. She was kneeling in the soil, planting something that glowed faintly, a flower from her homeworld, blue as her skin. She looked up when he approached, her eyes asking questions her lips didn't. He crouched beside her. "If I told you I've been lying about who I am," he said slowly, letting her read his lips, "would you hate me for it?" She shook her head once. "Truth comes when people trust," she typed on her pad. "I used to be a soldier," he said quietly. "A covert one. The kind they erase from records. My last mission went wrong. Very wrong." She wrote, "You ran to survive." "Yeah," he admitted. "But maybe I ran from more than danger." She studied him for a moment, then signed a simple phrase he understood even with his clumsy skills. "Still here." Her calm cut through his guilt like light through fog. That night, he slept little. Dreams came, flashes of fire, screams, and names he'd tried to forget. When he woke, sweat stuck his shirt to his skin. He saw the faint light under Leora's door again. She never seemed to sleep deeply either. At dawn, he walked outside to find her already awake, gathering herbs by the fence. A small bag sat beside her boots, half-filled. "You're up early," he said, facing her so she could see. "For your nightmares," she wrote. "Tea will help." He smiled weakly. "You noticed?" She nodded. "You walk heavy when you dream." He almost laughed, but the gesture broke something inside him instead. "Thank you." Later that day, while repairing the perimeter beacon, Ryland spotted movement on the ridge beyond his property. 3 silhouettes against the light. He froze. The shape, the pattern, military precision. Not locals. Not traders. He hurried inside, silent but fast. Leora was by the window, folding laundry. She looked up immediately, reading his alarm before he spoke. "Pack a bag," he said, lips tight. "We might have visitors." She didn't argue, didn't ask why. Her movements turned sharp and quick, every gesture efficient. Within minutes, she had food rations, medkits, and a compact tool case ready. Ryland loaded his blaster and peeked through the blinds. The ridge was empty now, but dust still floated in the air where the figures had been. "They found me," he muttered. Leora typed, "Who?" "Old enemies," he said. "Ones who don't forgive. Then we leave." Ryland met her eyes. "You're not part of this, Leora. They want me." She shook her head firmly. "They find you. They find me. We both go." Her calm left no room for argument. By nightfall, the freighter Vigilant was ready. Ryland transferred what little he owned, credits, tools, keepsakes, into the cargo hold. Leora secured the medkits, moving with quiet focus. When the engines rumbled to life, Ryland looked at her one last time before takeoff. "You don't have to stay, you know." She wrote a single word, "choice." He didn't reply. He didn't have to. The ship lifted silently into the night, its lights dimmed to avoid detection. Through the window, the twin moons faded behind clouds, and the dark sky opened wide. Inside the cockpit, Ryland set a random course toward the outer rim. Stars slid by like cold fire. Leora sat beside him, her eyes reflecting every passing light. For the first time, Ryland realized how much he'd grown used to her presence, the quiet rhythm of her movements, the strange peace she carried with her. He looked out at the endless black ahead and whispered, "Let's hope running still works." But deep inside, he already knew it didn't. Whatever hunted him was coming, and now she was part of it too. And somewhere beyond the stars, a signal pulsed back to life. A small red light blinking in time with the words, "Target confirmed. Human Captain Rylan Cole. Extract at dawn." The Vigilant streaked across the void like a wounded bird, her engines whispering low to hide from scanners. Rylan Cole sat in the pilot's chair, jaw tight, eyes flicking between the radar blips and the navigation map. Behind them, the stars twisted, not just points of light, but possible threats. Every shadow felt like pursuit. Leora sat beside him, calm but alert. Her silver hair shimmered faintly under the dim cockpit lights. She couldn't hear the engines, but she could feel the hum through the floor, the pulse of a machine trying to outrun ghosts. After hours of silence, Rylan spoke softly, facing her so she could read his lips. "We can't stay in normal space. They'll trace us." She typed on her pad. "Then where?" "Outer sectors," he said. "There's a place, Keelan's Rift. Too unstable for scanners, perfect for hiding." She nodded once. Simple. Trusting. As he adjusted the coordinates, a faint alarm flashed on the console. Not loud, but bright enough to freeze his hand midair. A tracker. They'd been marked again. "Damn it," he hissed. He hit the emergency shutdown, and the ship drifted, silent as a dead star. "Someone planted it before we left Arcadia." Leora leaned closer, studying the readout. The tracker's pulse blinked near the outer hull. She pointed, her expression sharp. "Remove?" Rylan hesitated. "If it's rigged, we'll both go up." Her eyes narrowed. Two faster than one. He almost smiled. She had courage, or maybe she just didn't know fear the same way humans did. "All right," he said. "We land first. Somewhere quiet." The nearest world was Rigel, 13, a half-frozen moon orbiting a gas giant. No colonies. No life. Perfect. They descended through a storm of dust and ice, the shuttle rattling like old bones. The landscape below was jagged rock and blue mist. Rylan set the freighter down in a narrow canyon, engines fading to a low growl. "Stay close," he said as they suited up. The wind outside screamed against the hull, silent to her, but loud enough to make him flinch. Together they stepped into the cold twilight. The ground was brittle under their boots, cracking like thin glass. The stars above were blurred behind the dust storm. Rylan's breath fogged his visor as he followed the signal toward the rear thrusters. There it was, a small black disc no larger than a coin, pulsing faintly red. He knelt. "Advanced tech," he muttered. "Military grade." Leora crouched beside him, passing tools with unspoken understanding. When his hands shook, hers steadied them. For a deaf alien girl who'd never seen combat, she was strangely fearless. They worked fast, careful not to cut the wrong wire. The light flickered once, twice, then died. Rylan exhaled. "Got it." The relief lasted exactly 3 seconds before a blaster bolt scorched the rock beside them. Another hissed past, close enough to melt a stripe across his suit. "Move," he shouted instinctively, forgetting she couldn't hear. But she understood anyway. Her eyes widened, and she grabbed his arm, dragging him behind the landing strut. More shots tore through the air. 3 silhouettes appeared on the ridge, tall, thin, armored in chrome-like plates that reflected the stormlight. Syndicate hunters. Rylan returned fire, short bursts to keep their heads down. He counted 3, maybe more behind them. "They found us faster than I thought," he muttered. Leora tapped his shoulder, then pointed toward a crack in the canyon wall, a narrow fissure, barely wide enough for 2. He nodded. They sprinted, energy bolts lighting the dark like white fire. Pebbles rained down as they dove through the gap and slid into a cave. Inside, the temperature dropped fast. Their suits hissed as the heaters kicked in. Rylan switched his helmet light on, casting a small circle of gold. The cave was barely 10 feet wide, walls glittering with frozen minerals. "We'll wait them out," he said, letting her read his lips. "They won't risk the cold." She nodded, teeth chattering though she couldn't hear the wind. When he saw her hands trembling, he moved closer, wrapping an arm around her. The warmth from his suit bled through slowly. Time stretched. Minutes became hours. The storm outside howled on, unseen and unheard. Leora's head rested lightly against his shoulder. Her hand found his, fingers cold but steady. Rylan stared at the dim light above, thoughts racing. 1 month ago, he'd been alone. Now he was hiding in an ice cave with a woman he barely knew. A woman who couldn't hear his voice, but somehow understood him better than anyone ever had. She lifted her hand, tracing slow words on the frosted rock. Not sorry to be here. He smiled faintly, wrote back beside it. Me neither. Their helmets touched, a silent promise in the frozen dark. Outside, the storm finally eased. But on the ridge above, a signal blinked again, unseen, the hunters calling for reinforcements. The chase wasn't over. Not yet. The storm over Rigel, 13 died at dawn, leaving the sky an eerie wash of silver and ash. The Vigilant sat half-buried in frost, steam rising faintly from her thrusters. Inside, Rylan Cole rubbed at the ache in his hands and checked the scanner for any sign of movement. Nothing. For now. Leora stood beside him, wrapped in a thermal blanket, watching his lips as he spoke. They'll regroup, he said. Hunters like that don't quit. She typed on her pad. Then we strike first. Rylan almost laughed. You've been spending too much time with me. She gave a small smile and wrote, You taught me fight is choice, not crime. He couldn't argue. He opened the compartment where he'd stored the disabled tracker and held it up between them. They used this to find us, he said. But maybe it can talk back. Leora tilted her head, curiosity gleaming in her eyes. She pointed to the device, then to the ship's comms panel. Reverse signal? Exactly, he said. If we can feed it new data, maybe we can hear what they're saying. It took hours of work, soldering, rewiring, and bypassing old security locks. Leora sat at his side, reading the codes that flickered across the screen. Her hands were quick, precise. She understood patterns, even those built for sound. When the first distorted voice cracked through the speakers, they both froze. Unit 3, Command wants confirmation, target alive? Another voice, rough and impatient, alive. Orders changed. Capture. Do not kill. Rylan frowned. Capture? Why the hell would they want me alive? Leora typed. Maybe not you. Maybe me. He stared at her. Why you? Because I'm with you. Before he could answer, another line of static turned into speech, the same harsh dialect he remembered from his days in Black Glass. Commander Vec demands immediate report. Syndicate denies involvement. Unauthorized operation. Rylan leaned back slowly. They're rogues. Acting without approval. Leora wrote, then no one to protect them. A plan began to take shape. If they could feed false data through the tracker, they could lure the hunters into a trap, one that would end this before it reached the wider warfront. They worked in silence, side by side. Rylan programmed a false distress call. The Vigilant crippled, leaking fuel, pilot injured. Leora adjusted the transmission pattern to mimic a damaged beacon. The trap was set. Hours later, a blip appeared on the radar. Small. Fast. One ship. The hunters had taken the bait. Rylan checked his blaster, nerves tight. Stay behind me, he said. Leora shook her head. Together. The scout ship landed 50 meters away, engines stirring clouds of frost. Two figures stepped out, the same sleek armor as before. They moved cautiously toward the Vigilant. Rylan crouched behind a ridge of ice, Leora opposite him, rifle steady. He gave her a signal, 3 flashes of light from his wrist unit. She nodded once. The first shot came from her. Perfect. Silent. One hunter dropped instantly, paralyzed by the stun charge. Rylan fired at the second, hitting him square in the chest. He fell hard, armor sparking. The ship's ramp hissed open again, and a taller figure emerged, four-eyed, marked with crimson insignia. The leader. Vec. Rylan stepped out, weapon raised. Don't, he warned. You're outnumbered. The alien hissed. Human. You meddle where you shouldn't. Give me the girl, and you may live. She's not yours to take. You don't even know what she is. Leora appeared from the side, her rifle aimed steady. Vec's eyes widened slightly. Ah, he said. So the experiment survived. Rylan's stomach turned. What experiment? Vec sneered. Your Procyon pet was bred for empathy and regeneration. We wanted to see how humans would react to one of their own kind caring for a silent thing. Your species loves a story, Captain. Rylan's pulse roared in his ears. You used her as bait. She was always bait. Before the alien could say more, Leora fired. The stun bolt hit Vec square in the chest. His body stiffened and fell backward, armor clattering against the ice. Rylan moved fast, binding the 3 with magnetic cuffs. Leora's hands trembled, but her eyes were hard as steel. She typed one line on her pad, "No more running." Rylan nodded grimly. No more. They dragged the prisoners aboard the Vigilant. As he started the engines, Rylan looked back once at the frozen canyon, a graveyard of secrets. He faced Leora. "We send them to both sides," he said. "Let the syndicates see what they've done. Let the humans know what they created." She washed his lips and smiled faintly. Truth louder than gun. He didn't know if she meant it as hope or warning. Maybe both. Outside, the engines flared to life. The Vigilant rose slowly. Through the thin air, leaving the dead, quiet moon behind. For the first time since this began, Rylan wasn't just running. He was fighting back. The Vigilant burned through black space, engines glowing like a heartbeat. Inside the cockpit, the silence was thick. Rylan Cole sat with his hands locked around the controls, staring at the frozen planet shrinking behind them. 3 bound syndicate hunters lay unconscious in the cargo hold. Leora sat across from him, her face pale, her silver hair loose over her shoulders. The words of the alien commander still echoed in Rylan's mind. Experiment. Bait. Story. He had seen 1,000 horrors during his years in Black Glass, but nothing made his stomach twist like that truth. Leora wasn't part of his debt. She had been placed in his path. Used. Measured. Watched. He turned toward her. "Did you know?" he asked quietly, facing her so she could read his lips. She shook her head fast, eyes wide, typing furiously on her pad. "Never. I thought Father just needed money. Didn't know they wanted you." Rylan nodded, believing her instantly. The fear in her eyes wasn't guilt, it was betrayal. "We'll end this," he said firmly. "All of it." They worked together to extract data from the captured hunter's gear. Leora's slender fingers danced over the alien tech, tracing circuits until the screens flickered alive. Layers of encrypted messages unfolded. Orders, coordinates, names. And one transmission marked active, a direct communication line to the Syndicate High Council. Rylan stared. "We could use this," he said. "Expose the rogue operation. Force the Council's hand." Leora wrote, "Or they destroy us before truth spreads." He gave a dry laugh. "Yeah, there's always that." Still, he activated the channel. Static filled the speakers. Then came a deep, resonant voice, cold, precise, and strangely calm. "Captain Cole, we have been expecting your call." Rylan froze. "You know me? Your name crosses many reports. The human who vanished. The soldier who should have died. And the ones you sent after me? They acted without our consent. Commander Vec and his cell have been ambitious." Rylan glanced at Leora. "Then you'll confirm it. Publicly." "Perhaps," said the voice. "Return them to us, and we will consider amnesty." "Not enough," Rylan said. "I want their records made public, the genetic tests, the experiments, everything. The galaxy deserves to know what you've done." There was a long pause. "You make demands as though you are in control, human." Rylan's tone sharpened. "I am. I have 3 of your soldiers, a full comm log, and enough data to turn the Syndicate and the Coalition against each other. You want this to stay quiet? Then we talk like equals." The voice chuckled faintly. "Very well. Send proof." Rylan transmitted a fragment. Not everything, just enough to sting. The connection flickered. He saw a flash of alien eyes, dozens of them, watching from behind polished glass screens. Then the line went dead. He turned to Leora. "They'll contact us again. Probably soon." Leora didn't respond right away. Instead, she wrote slowly, "You trust no one. Not even them. Not even me." Rylan blinked, thrown off. "That's not true." She lifted her chin, meeting his eyes. "You look at me like I'll vanish. Like I'm another mission that went wrong." He exhaled, his voice low. "You think I don't want to trust? I've lost everyone I ever tried to protect. I'm not them." She wrote, the letters sharp. He stared at her for a long moment. Then, quietly, "No, you're not." A soft alarm interrupted the tension. Incoming transmission. Human frequency. Coalition signal. Rylan's blood turned cold. He opened the line. Commander Aiden Cross, his former superior, appeared on screen, wearing the familiar black insignia of Black Glass Command. "Rylan Cole," Cross said flatly. "You've been busy. Nice to see you too, Commander. We intercepted your transmission to the Syndicate Council. Care to explain why you're chatting with the enemy?" "Maybe because your own people built the experiment that started this mess," Rylan shot back. Cross's eyes narrowed. "You're out of line." "No," Rylan said, leaning forward. I'm finally in line with the truth. Leora stood behind him, reading the exchange. Her fingers gripped the back of his chair, silent but steady. Cross continued. Hand over the prisoners and the girl. We'll debrief you on Arcadia. The girl stays with me, Ryland said. She's property of the syndicate. Hybrid biology. She doesn't even belong on human soil. Ryland's voice dropped to a growl. She belongs where she chooses to stand. And she's standing with me. The line crackled. Cross's expression turned cold. You're making a mistake, Captain. I've made plenty, Ryland said. One more won't kill me. He killed the transmission. Silence. Only the hum of the engines and Leora's faint breathing filled the air. She placed a hand on his shoulder. Cool, gentle, grounding. He looked up at her, exhaustion fading into resolve. We're not handing you over. To anyone. Human or alien. She smiled faintly, then signed one simple phrase he'd learned. Together until the stars fade. Outside the viewport, space rippled, a distortion from an incoming fleet. Coalition ships. He recognized their design instantly. They're early, he muttered. Leora moved beside him, calm as ever. She picked up her datapad and typed. Then let's show them humans don't run anymore. Ryland grinned despite the danger. Now that's HFY. He pushed the throttle. The Vigilant shot forward into the dark, leaving light trails in her wake. A single human and a deaf alien girl daring the galaxy to stop them. Stars bled into blue dawn as the Vigilant pierced the atmosphere of Arcadia once more. The ship's hull hissed, heat peeling away like old scars. Ryland Cole guided her down with a steady hand. He'd been gone only weeks, yet the world below felt older, quieter, like it was holding its breath. Beside him, Leora sat in silence, her eyes fixed on the horizon. Sunlight painted her skin in shades of sapphire and gold. She typed slowly on her pad. We come back as fugitives or as witnesses. Ryland smiled without humor. Both. They landed in the meadow behind his home. The same porch, the same wide hills, now covered in silver mist. Birds scattered as the engines wound down. The air smelled like rain and rust. For a long time, neither of them moved. It was strange returning to the place where everything had started, knowing it would never be the same. Finally, Ryland stood. We've got work to finish. Leora nodded, calm but resolute. Inside the house, dust had settled over everything. The console light blinked red, messages waiting. He ignored them. Instead, he pulled up a private transmitter, one not registered to the Coalition or the Syndicate. He uploaded 2 files, one of Vex's confession, another of the genetic data proving the Syndicate and the humans had collaborated on Leora's creation. Once this goes public, Ryland said, they can't silence it. Leora's fingers hovered over the pad. You sure? Yeah. The truth deserves to breathe, even if it burns. She gave a small nod, then pressed send. The files vanished into the planetary network, scattering across thousands of channels. Within minutes, alarms would sound in both governments. Whispers would turn into outrage. And somewhere out there, powerful people would curse their names. For the first time, Ryland felt free. A faint vibration hummed through the floor, the perimeter sensor. Someone was approaching. He checked the display. A single life form. Humanoid. Familiar. Breck. The Procyon trader, Leora's father. His bulky frame appeared over the hill, shoulders bent beneath exhaustion. He wasn't drunk this time. He wasn't proud either. Just old. Leora stiffened beside Ryland. Her fingers twitched, forming the word Y in her native sign. Ryland said softly, we don't have to see him. She shook her head. I must. They stepped outside as Breck reached the porch. He stopped short, eyes flicking between them. Daughter, he said hoarsely. Captain Cole. Ryland stayed silent, watching. Breck's voice trembled. I did what I thought would save us. The Syndicate promised to forgive my debts if I helped them study human bond. They said you'd be safe. I didn't know what they planned. Leora's hands moved rapidly, sharp, angry gestures that even Ryland, with his clumsy signing, could follow. You sold me. Breck's eyes filled with shame. I gave you away because I thought I was giving you a chance. She stepped forward until she stood inches from him. The wind lifted her silver hair. For a heartbeat, the world held still. Then she signed slower, softer. You gave me pain, but also freedom. Breck's lip quivered. He lowered his gaze. You sound like your mother. Ryland placed a hand gently on Leora's shoulder. He's being hunted now, he said quietly. By both sides. He can't stay long. Leora turned back to Breck, typed a short message, and handed him her pad. Guest house. You work. You live honest. Then you go. Breck looked stunned. After all I did? She nodded once. Mercy. She mouthed carefully, the word rough but clear. He fell to his knees, whispering words neither of them could hear. That night, the three of them ate together under the porch light. Breck silent, Ryland thoughtful, Leora watching the stars. The network had exploded with chaos. Headlines and transmissions were already flooding the feeds. Humanity denied the project. The syndicate called it propaganda. But the truth was out there now, burning across both empires. Leora leaned against Ryland's shoulder, typing on her pad. Now what happens to us? He smiled faintly. We build. We live. We stop running. Until they come again? She wrote. He looked at her, really looked, and said, then we remind them why humans survive. Not because we're stronger, but because we keep standing. Her eyes softened. She signed a phrase he had learned well. Together until the stars fade. Above them, the night sky flared with falling lights. Not meteors, but ships entering the atmosphere. Not enemies this time, but allies, refugees, outcasts, wanderers from both sides, drawn to the only place left that didn't belong to any flag. Ryland stood, watching the sky burn gold. Looks like we started something. Leora arose beside him, her face calm in the glow. Something worth keeping. As dawn broke, the camera would pull back, the vigilant resting in the field, the house standing proud beneath twin suns, and two figures on the porch, hand in hand. Human and Procyon. Silence and speech. War and peace. And somewhere in that stillness, a simple truth echoed through the stars. Humanity doesn't run. It endures.